and just say continue without audio. All right, welcome everybody. Happy Monday. Hope everybody have a good weekend. I know it's raining in Vancouver. It's pretty bad. I'm not sure about Seattle. It's probably as bad as Vancouver, but hope you guys enjoy your weekend. All right, today we're going to talk about things you may not know Revit can do. So some of the topics I'm going to talk about, all right. So I'm going to do mostly demonstration, all right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the 3D property line, and some other stuff we want to talk about is use like room boundary, add structural components to your design, create simple objects from scratch without using any family. Okay, for example, mechanical louvers and canopies. If you want to create slope curtain wall, I know that most of the time if you want to create slope, you have to use massing, but this one I'm just going to demonstrate that you don't have to do that. The other one I'm going to talk about is lockdown using design options. So if you want certain things to be locked down so that nobody can touch it, that's a way, and then some other couple of tricks. Hopefully by the end of the day, I'm going to show you how to do a bonus, which is scale your family model. I know that in Revit you cannot do scaling. I'm going to show you how to do that, okay, in this session. All right, let's jump onto the demonstration. All right, let's start with the project. I'm just going to open up, all right, it's going to upgrade. So I'm going to open up a project. This is Vancouver. This is a BC place, all right. My previous job, what I did is that I actually built the BC place because we're actually doing some new buildings there, so someone has to go in there and build it, okay? This was originally done in Revit 2009, and then after that we just keep upgrading to, I think the latest one was 14, but now you're just going to see it in the full glory.
Which buildings did I get you? The casino?
This is the casino, yes. So I built the original BC Place model. It was originally in SketchUp. Then I realized I cannot do anything with it because I have to cut section, and then the section doesn't show anything. So I just had to scrap that idea and just say, okay, just build the whole thing in Revit.
It's amazing how close those buildings are.
Oh yeah. I think structural. They were using what do you call it, the Rhino to do a lot of this exterior skin. And what we have to do is that we have to use that, translate that into Revit. It was pretty impressive. Okay, so here we have the model. Okay, BC Place, nothing special, right? So when you look at it, it looks like that. So the first thing I'm going to show you guys is that every time when you go and build your property line, okay, I'm just going to go sketching. Assuming that this is your property line, and you know that the property line, it's never perfect. It's always going to be obscure like that. The problem with this, let's say if I want to close, okay, and when you cut a section, okay, to the site, and what you end up having is that, you know, the property line just doesn't show up, right? That is basically happens to everybody. So what the user has to do is that they have to go in there and just draw your own physical property line. So, instead of doing that, rather than doing, you know, just a physical property line, why don't we just build it in 3D? So the first thing you want to do is that you go to the components, and you're going to do an in-place family, okay? Select the one called the site, all right, right there, and just say okay. And here I'm just going to go and say property, P-R-O-P-E-R-T-Y, 3D, okay? And what you could do is that you could just use the extrusion. And what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to use the property line as kind of like, you know, just draw a line. Okay, just pick. Now, the nicest thing about this is that you can make it any shape you want. Okay? And then one thing I would do is that I would do extrusion starts and extrusion end. I'm just going to put my property in here. What this does is that this means that how much you want your property line to project. So I'm just going to put a couple of parameters. Now, one thing I would do is that I would just make sure that it will not show up in plan. Okay, the minute that you say you want to show up in plan, it's going to hide your model. So I would just say, if you want to do it, just turn it off. okay? And this one, by category, I'll just say this is going to be material. Okay, just simple stuff. And then the important thing you have to make sure you put in is this subcategory. Okay, you make sure that you change it to property lines. And now when you click on this, okay, and then when you go back to that particular finish model, okay, and then what you're going to do is that when you go into here, you start to see that there's a property line projection right here. So what you could do with this is that you go to edit the type, and this is basically, I'm just going to go 10 meters and then just say 100 meters. And what happened with this, oops, I should say negative 20 meters, sorry. And what this does is that basically when you have the starting point, it basically means that you want to go down and go up. Okay, right now what's happening is that that property line is going to hide your object. So the next step you have to do is that you have to create a filter. Okay, so what you're going to do is just add a new filter. Here I'm just going to say property 3D. And I'm going to go site. And in here I'm just going to say the type name, or you can say family name to be exact. Okay, it's going to be property 3D. Now what you could do with this property 3D is that you can set this transparency to 100%. Now what I typically like to do is that if it's a property line, if you're not cutting, I usually turn the line weight to white so that you don't see them if you're doing background. So I usually use dot. Okay. Anything with cut, I'm just going to say, just make it a little bit darker so you can see it. Let's say I'm going to make it 8. Okay. Now what you have is that you have a property. You notice that this property, if it's projecting beyond that, it's all going to show white. And if anything with the dark property line is going to show like that. Okay. So 3D property, it has its usefulness. Okay. But one thing you have to be aware of this is that if you guys are using a lot of keynoting, this thing will just keynote to that property line. Okay, there's no workaround at the moment, but I'm still finding out if there's a way. But if you're doing a lot of design development, you want to know exactly where your property lies and your relationship with your building, this is the way to go, rather than just drawing in your own line. Okay? So, any questions so far with this?
So you can't do keynoting on the elevation?
You cannot use keynoting because what happened is that this elevation object, it's going to basically just go on top, so it's going to basically cover that. Okay, that's the unfortunate thing.
Well, you could use that then, like you're saying early on, and then just draw over it with a new
Right.
line because of the exact placement.
Right. The other option you could do is that you can create a link. All right. So that's the other option is that you basically create the property line, 3D property line, and put it outside, and then you link them in. Once you link them in, and you basically create that setting so that you don't have to create, you can still do keynoting. But I have to experiment more because I'm not really sure that this will help, okay? Because keynoting is very, very sensitive. It just wants to know if there's an object. If there's an object, it will just pick it up, okay? Just to be sure. All right, the next thing I'm going to talk about is basically a better room boundary. I know that when users use a lot of the room boundary, they would use this guy right here, room separator, correct? This is something that I want to get people off from it because this thing will kill you in the long term. Okay, what's the alternative to room separation? So first thing you want to do is that when you create a room separation, okay, scroll all the way down until you find curtain wall, and the only thing you have to do here is to just duplicate this and just call room boundary. Okay. And then the next thing you want to do is that for the curtain wall panel, you want it to be empty, okay? Or you can create your own, right? Like a curtain wall panel with the line or whatever built in, but I usually use the empty panel. So what you could do with this is that you could just basically draw a line, okay? And the benefit of using this is that you can basically tell Revit how many levels you want to go up. With room boundary, you can only do line at one particular level. So when you go up to the next level, you have to copy that line, and then you have to copy up to the upper level. So rather than having multiple objects for the room boundary, you just have one object representing the multiple level. This makes a lot of sense if you're building, maybe I should just go to a project, right? Just create a new project. This makes sense if you do like a high-rise tower and then you have a scissor stairs. Okay, I'm just gonna go in here. I'm gonna array this, right? Let's say from this level to that level, and let's say you have 23 levels. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a wall. Yeah, sure. Let's go from here. Let's assume that this is your core, and you want this core to go up to all the way up to this level. Traditionally, you're going to have stairs. All right, I'm just going to draw stairs, a scissor stairs. Okay, going from one level to another. Okay, perfectly fine. Okay, let's say this is your stair. Now, do you know that you can actually do a multi-story? Okay, I'm assuming that everybody knows that, right? If you don't know, then this is how you do it, right? Just go multi-story, just go to the last level, and then you say pick 28. So what that looks like is that you're going to have stairs that go all the way up like that. Okay? So let's assume that you have a wall, a scissor stairs, okay? And you want to separate between this scissor stairs and that scissor stairs. So rather than doing a boundary, I should just do pick. Let's say that's a scissor stairs. I'm not the best at this. Let's assume that this is your core, and then you have one side going the other way, the other side going the other way. So what you want to do is that you want to create a separation between the two. So what I'm talking about previously is that if you have a room boundary, I'm just going to copy this. Yeah, room boundary. Okay, just copy that, what I've created, and paste it in here. So what you could do is that you could say, okay, for this room boundary, I'm just going to split it in between the two room. Okay, it looks invisible. That's okay, but you could actually tell it to go levels, like how many levels you want to go up. I want to go to level 28, and top offset is 0. So when you put in rooms, right? Let's say you're going to put a rooms, and then when you go up to the second level, you can do the same thing. You can just go to level 2. And you notice that that room boundary becomes active in multiple levels. Okay, it's a good way. Okay, I would just tell people, do not use this. All right, don't use this. Use the room boundary, because room boundary is very flexible, so that you can actually tell it to go up. If you have a level that is a split level, this room boundary sometimes will have issues picking it up. Now, if you are putting in rooms, and it always tells you that you cannot put rooms because the room is at offset level, there's a way you can actually tell Revit to put in a room. That's, for example, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna demonstrate something. So let's say I'm gonna go level 1, and let's say assuming that this thing is actually 2 feet off the ground, and then right now the room boundary says that, oh, it's not enclosed. Okay, it doesn't know what to do. I'm just going to turn on my room. Okay, it looks like that. But you can actually go back into this, and you notice that there is one computational height. Okay, do you guys notice that there is a computational height? If you change this to 4 feet, okay, when you go back to the level 1, you notice that that whole room is going to get filled. Okay, what it does is that if you do run into problems where when you place a room, it's always at 0. So what happened is that Revit would just not calculate that if it's at 0. So if you tell that level to say computation, I want to calculate all the height that's above 4 feet, then it will start to put in that room. Okay, just in case. I mean, if you do run into this problem where rooms are not closing properly, first thing first is to select all your level and saying that computational height, just make it like 4 feet. And then that should resolve some of this issue. Any questions so far over there? Shall we move on? All right. So next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a floor. Or actually, let's do a roof. Yeah, let's do a roof. Okay, I should do it in level 2, sorry about that. See, I'm going to do it here. I'm going to do a roof. And then here, what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to do like a really thin finishing. So let's say I'm going to do 1/2 inch finished. Doesn't matter what it is, just call it 1/2 inch finished. All right, there we go. No. Now, the next thing I want to do with this is that I want to put like a structure. Let's say if you want to do like a wood frame structure or steel stud structure and stuff like that, you can actually do it inside Revit to show actually where the spacing of the studs and all that stuff. So first thing you want to do is that you want to open up your structural elements, right? So here I'm just going to go to metric library. I'm just going to use everything out of the box. Let's say framing. Let's say wood. If you want, you could say let's go with plywood joists. Okay, that looks good. Just load it into your project. Let's add in glue laminated. Nah, that's not. Yeah, let's do that as well. That looks nice. Okay, just load it in. Okay. Now, the next thing you want to do is that, let's say if you want to display that structure in your floor, the first thing you could do is that just click on structure and use this beam system. I'm not sure if you guys used beam system before. If you don't, I'm just going to demonstrate how it's done. It's pretty easy. So click on this, okay? And what you're going to do is that just draw in like where you want it. You notice that when you do floor, it always shows up this symbol, okay? You're not sure what it is. I'll tell you what it is. It means that it's the direction of the beam that's going to be following where it goes. So right now what happens is that this is where the beam is going to go. It's going to go this way, okay? If I go select it this way, okay, and then go finished, what it does is that you notice that there's a beam right there. So in here, what I'm going to do is that you could go spacing, okay? Let's say I'm going to go 2 feet spacing. Let me hide this, okay? And you notice that there's your beam right there. Oh, actually I'm putting in the wrong level. All right, so you can always change that. Oh, actually I can't. Edit work plane. Ah, I could cheat, okay? There we go. So that's how you do it, okay? If you want beam system, if you don't like beam, let's say I want to change it to more of a TGI, then you can say, okay, I want to make it all, TGI. There we go. Okay, you can put in holes as well. Okay, but this is a pretty good way if you want to do like a meat and bone of your building. Okay, so if you don't like to draw those little webs and stuff like that inside your Revit, this is a perfect way to go. Okay, this is not cheating. This is actually modeling the proper thing. It looks pretty cool too, right? You can do open web joists and do whole other stuff. The nice thing about this is that when you have a floor finish and stuff like that, you can actually tell your electrical, if they're using Revit, is that they could put pot lights. They understand where that beam's going to be and not to intrude into that, or mechanical as well. So this will help you tremendously. All right. Any questions so far?
Can you put those beam system in a floor assembly, or does it have to be like under a floor assembly?
It's have to be under floor assembly. So this is under structure itself. Okay, it's on the beam system. It's their own kind of a thing.
Okay.
All right. So this is why, like when you do floor, I typically like to do finishes. I don't like to do structural stuff, so that I use the structure to just display your object. Okay. So if you want to poke a hole, you can also poke a hole. Okay, this is the nicest thing about putting the beam system is that you can poke a hole and it will understand where you want the hole to be. So let's say, for example, I'm going to put a hole. And then in here, come on, I'm just going to do the same thing. Okay, if you want the structural to do the same, I'm just going to put a hole. Come on. Let's say I'm going to do it here. And it will respect that as well, so you can actually do that. Okay, you can put a hole in it, and then you can say, okay, this is what it looks like. So a lot of time, what I would do with this is that if you want to do glue lamp really nice, like church, like look at the physical structure, this is a perfect way to do it. Okay, just to get that visual kind of a look. It doesn't mean that you're a structural engineer, but you're just basically using it just for visual. Okay, just to make the space looks really nice. All right. Any questions so far before I move on? All right, let's build some objects, very simple stuff. I know that a lot of you guys are building louvers and stuff like that, mechanical louvers. Here I'm just going to demonstrate how to build it very quick and very easy. So what you could do is that the first thing I would do is just create a wall and use a curtain wall. Okay, I'm just going to duplicate this. I'm going to call this mechanical louver. First thing I would do is that I would do vertical. Vertical grids. I would just say fixed number. You could go fixed distance, doesn't matter. Okay. And then the first thing you want to do is that the exterior, what you want is that you want the border. So I'm just going to pick one from the rectangle. Okay. Okay. Just use the rectangle mullion as it is, and then interior type I want to just use that one. Okay. I'm just going to just draw one in. Right now it doesn't look impressive. Okay, that's okay. I'm going to create a bunch of stuff. I'm just going to make this thing 2 meters. Okay, nothing impressive right now. So the first thing you want to do is that you want to go into your families. Okay, in here you want to go into I think it was mullion. Let's say curtain wall mullions. Okay, remember there is horizontal. You can actually duplicate this. I'm just going to duplicate and call it. This is the louver. And in here I'm just going to put an angle 5 degree, and then here I'm just going to say it's going to be 1 inch. Oh, actually less than that. So let's go 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, and then this one I'm going to go 100 millimeter or 4 inch. Okay, and then hit apply. Now the next thing you want to do is that once you've done that, you're going to go edit type. Okay, in the horizontal, this one I'm going to use the 50, okay? But the interior type, I want to use the louver, okay? And then on the top, you want to replace it with empty panel, okay? Pretty simple. So what I have is that the curtain panels, I want to replace it with empty. The bottom part, vertical mullions, you want to basically go just the default size, and then when you do the horizontal, the border type, if you don't know what border 1, border 2 means, is that it's left and right, and then inside here is interior, okay? Which means that the border type 1 means that it's going to go top and bottom, okay? And then whatever's in between, I just call it louver. Now for horizontal grid, what you want to do is that you want to say fixed distance, okay, or maximum spacing, depending on what you like. But I like maximum spacing because it fits within your space, okay. So in here, I'm gonna say make this thing 4 inches apart, okay. And when you hit apply, you get a louver that looks like that. Okay. Now, if you want to change this, you could say, okay, I don't want louvers. I want to make it like more like 30 degree, and make it like 1/4 inch. Okay. There we go. So very easy, very simple. Okay. So I use this a lot if you're only doing a design in the beginning. You don't have to build any family. Just use curtain wall. And in here, you can say, okay, I want a 2. So there you go. Okay. So everything's just built within that. Pretty simple? Looks pretty nice, right?
Smart.
Yeah, so I've seen people build this on their own. I just say, nah, don't do that. Right? This is a simple way. Because the thing is that for us, we're not the mechanical engineer. I don't like to design mechanical parts, so I just give them whatever approximate size, and this is perfectly fine. Okay? we just don't want to do very, very fancy stuff. Any questions so far? Okay, on the flip side, you can build canopies out of this as well. Okay, so let's say I'm going to go back and then do canopies. All right, I'm just going to use the floor. So, if you want to build canopies, the first thing you do is that you select a roof, okay? You notice that there's one called the slope glazing. Acts as the curtain wall, okay? So, again, you just draw it in. Nothing fancy. So the next thing you want to do, I'm just going to go here, 3D, is that you want to basically built in edge condition around that. So let's say if I want to slope glazing and say this is canopy, okay? First thing you want to do is that the grid 1 and grid 2, depending on how the orientation, you kind of have to experiment. It's either one or the other. So the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm just going to put this as fixed number for now, okay? And then the interior, what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to use the same mullion type, okay, the same. And then for the exterior, I'm just going to say just the one side I just want to put it in. I don't care about the other. And this time I'm just going to say panel, just say none, it's fine. Okay? And voila, that's your canopy. And if you want, you can say 1, 2. But if you want to be very, very certain, then you can say maximum spacing. I'm going to make this thing 5 feet. Okay? And then what you could do is that right now you have a canopy. Okay, you can stretch them out. Okay, what it does is that it automatically fix your canopy based on whatever size you want. Now, if you want to angle this, you can say, okay, this side I want it to be defined slope. Okay, and let's say the slope is 5 degrees. Oh, the other way, sorry. Yeah, -5. It would tell you there's an error message. That's fine. Yeah, delete the instant. That's fine. There we go. So you have a canopy that is sloping. Okay, very simple. So, yes.
I don't suppose there's a way to slope just the glazing and not the mullions, is there?
Okay, the question is that is there a way to slope the glazing, not the mullion? Okay, you got me there, but no. You can have to build it within a panel. Okay, that's the unfortunate thing. Okay, so if you don't want that, then yes, that's what I would do is that you could build it inside a panel. Now, if you never use slope glazing, it works like it's like a panel system, right? So what you could do is that instead of system panel, you can always build your own. I'm going to show you how quickly to build one, very simply. Okay, just in case if you guys want to know how to do this, right?
Can you change the location of the glazing within that canopy as well? So typically you'd have your structure underneath and your glazing on top.
Right. Okay, so if you want to change the direction, so let's say for example this one I'm just going to say offset. This is where you're going to play around with the panel. So this is the offset, is what the button you want to use. So here I'm just going to say if it's 100 millimeter, I'm just going to say 100 millimeter, and then say OK. And what it does is that it goes that way. So what you have to do is that you just go negative 100 millimeters. It'll go to the top. Okay, so that's how you do it. So if you want to do the offset, but if you want to do sloping, again, you kind of have to build your own family. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I just use a simple curtain wall, very simple. Okay, so in here, if you want to master your Revit kind of a family building, the first thing you want to do is that you want to create skeleton. Okay, first I'm going to create a skeleton, 2 skeleton. This thing is going to be offset towards the outside, and then this one is going to be offset to the inside. So you have a control for both the out and the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly draw it up, okay. And here I'm just going to say projection out or offset exterior. And then this is the offset interior. So you know what I'm trying to do, sort of. If you don't understand, that's fine. You don't have to. Because I'm not making an expert out of everybody, because this is kind of like, there's no point in doing this if you don't understand. So All right, so I'm just going to put in a glazing that's the thickness, right? So you could say this is the thickness of etc. So I'm just going to say this is 50 millimeter, okay? It's about 2 inch if you are Imperial. Yeah, I think Brian should make all the Vancouver side using Imperial instead of metric. Because we're so savvy in Imperial, and then you just put a 180 degree on us. Okay, so you have that, and then what I'm going to do is that you're going to basically add in a reference plane, or you can add in a model line. Doesn't matter what it is. So I'll just let you pick. So this is where you're basically going to say, okay, how much is it's your offsetting. So here I'm just going to say, I'm going to add in an offset of 86. So if you don't like that angle, then you can go the other way. Okay, so this is basically trying to, and I'm going to go offset angle. Okay, just put an angle. Okay, and then I'm just going to go offset. Previously we have 50, right? So let's go 50. Oops, where's my offset? 50. Okay, so since we already did the glazing at 50, so what you're going to do is that you're going to lock this down and say this is 50. Okay, that's the thickness. Okay. What's my curtain panel height? It doesn't tell me. Oh, there it is, right there. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is that you want to make sure you have a value there, 400. So the first thing I'm going to do in here is that I'm going to use the instance parameter called the reporting parameter, and then this is going to be made report height. Okay, so if you ever built anything with curtain wall is very flexible. Those boundaries are actually the extent of your boundary. So if you want to get like a reporting, so you always have to establish those boundary as kind of like that's a report, because if you build anything within the curtain wall families, this is what it's going to refer to. Okay, reporting parameter. So what that allows me to do is that you see that there is a line there. In the future, I'll go more into depth into that, but for now, I'm not going to worry too much about that. All right. So next thing I want to do is I'm just going to build an extrusion. I'm just going to use this as an extent. Okay, built that. Just basically just follow the skeleton, right? Okay, trim. All right, good. There's your thing, and then I'm basically going to say lock it to this, lock it to that, and make sure you have material built into it. All right, I always like to put in material just default. All right. The thing is that I never define material inside the family, because the thing is that you want to define inside the project. So whatever material put in here, just leave it blank. Just don't worry about it. The only thing you have to worry about is that this guy, you have to make sure you put it in the right category. Okay, that's the one thing that I always tell people is that make sure you put it in the right category, or else later on when you try to turn certain things off, he doesn't recognize that. Right, you have that in, and then you just go into and just go project. Okay, I'm not going to say family just for the sake of time, but best practices is that you always save a family, and this is where you're going to say, okay, I'm going to go family 1. All right, this is where you're going to control what's my offset. So if you put 0, 0, it's got to go back to the original. Okay, that's how I do it, and then here you can say this is 25 millimeter. All right, and then that's it. So that's how you create your slope. Okay, just to family, and then you just say this is my boundary, and then et cetera, et cetera.
Can you put that family into the other family so that you have it all as one piece and it automatically adjusts?
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. So the question is that can you put it into one family? Yes. This is where you're going to say, okay, select this, edit the type, and this is where you're going to say panel condition. What is the panel? I'm going to go family 1. Okay. So what it does is that it makes all of that family 1. Okay. Whenever you build anything and you put it in, and then that becomes your family 1. Right? Any question? Pretty simple. All right. It's going to get gotta get crazier, okay? So, how many of you guys built a slope curtain wall using massing? That's how we do it most of the time, right? So here I'm just gonna show you that you don't have to do that, okay? Following the same sloping glazing, this is one thing I'm gonna show you how it's done. So what you could do is that you could create a roof. Just use like slope glazing. So what you could do here is that just draw like where you want your boundary. If you want to make it flexible, I typically add an arrow, okay? And in here you can say tail, I'm going to make it slope, all right? With this slope you can say, okay, I want a 30-degree or whatever. Now, if you want to tie it to something, right? Let's say you want to tie it to a level, then I would typically say height at the tail, and then the default is at 0. And this one you want to tie it to something. Let's say I'm going to tie it to level 2. Okay, make it 0. Okay, and when I finish it, you have a slope glazing. So if the level changes, let's say I'm going to go in here, I'm going to delete this there. If the level ever change, I'm going to go select all instance, entire project, just ungroup it. Okay. If the level of a change, let's say for example, this is your slope curtain wall. Oh, I should do it in a section. Makes it a little bit easier. Okay, let's say that's where it is. So let's say if I want to move it down, I should delete this guy as well. So let's say I want to move it. You notice that the slope curtain wall actually follows with the level. Okay. So now what you could do here is that you could actually put in your own panel. So I could say, okay, for mullion. Oops. Come on, mullion. Just say grid line. Okay. So there you go. Here's the sloping. And then if you want to make it a little bit more, let's say slope glazing, I want to like duplicate it and call it like, grid 1 fixed number. So here I'm just going to say grid 1 fixed number. And what you could do is that you could say, okay, I'm going to put in here interior type, let's say 150. There we go. And if you want, you could say I wanted this to be 2. Now, the nice thing about this is that you could actually add more, okay? There you go. Okay? Pretty easy? All right. Any questions so far in Seattle?
Is there a way to maintain the angle if you choose the level?
Can you speak up? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Is there a way to maintain the angle when you change the level? So with that one, it was just an offset at the top, but how do you keep, if you wanted a specific angle?
Yep. Okay, if you want a specific angle, then what you do is that, again, you just go edit. Okay, so and then this is where you're going to say, okay, I no longer want that. I want it to be basically go slope. Okay, and then this is where you're going to say, okay, I want 30-degree. Okay, it's going to delete that element. That's fine. Okay, there we go. There's your thing, and then you can say, okay, I want it to be as much as I want, and I want it to be, instead of 30-degree, let's make it 60. So here you can change it here. Okay. You can say this one I want to be 60-degree. What it does is that it depends on where this is. It will basically just do an offset angle. All right? Any questions so far? You can also do curve as well if you want to go crazy. But yeah, so you could do curve as well. So it's not that bad. So let's say I'm going to do a demonstration. Well, not the wall, but the roof. If you want to go crazy, you could do curve, and then I just do offset, let's say 1 meter. And then just do an arrow. I typically like to do it in the middle, okay? So when you do an arrow, you always want it to be in the middle of the curve. And then here you can say, okay, I want to define it. Heads of the tail, I'm just going to say slope and say 75. And this one, the default value, it's going to basically just not show up. And then, there we go. Yeah, you can go crazy with this, right? So I'll leave that up to you, to your imagination, right? So you can do a curve, and yeah, you can do that. All right, what other stuff I should talk about? So anything come up? Okay, so one of the question last time, if you want to do a lockdown, let's say I'm going to go back to my Vancouver casino. You notice that there's a lot of grid lines, right? And the problem with that is that sometimes people will move that stuff accidentally. Okay, so how do you lock it down so that prevent people from actually doing stuff? The first thing I would recommend doing is that you would use what's known as the design option. I know that sometimes people use design option. I would not use design option if you're putting in, like, let's say, wall objects or anything. I only use it if you want to, let's say, lock down certain item that you do not want people touching for the duration of the project. Grid is a perfect example because it gets moved so often, and then sometimes you don't know who's moving it. Well, you can, but sometimes it's very difficult to backtrack. So the first thing you want to do is that you click on this button. It will tell you what do you want to do with this. So I want to just say new option set. I'm just going to call it, just rename it. All right, just rename it. This is going to be grid plus reference. Now, if you have like a reference plane that you think it's going to be useful for your project and you do not want people deleting it, you can put it in there as well, just as a marking. In here, I'm just going to rename, same thing, just grid plus ref. Okay?
Simon, can you explain how this is different than having it in
Pin?
our work sets?
Oh, okay. Work sets won't do anything. You can pin. People can unpin it. Okay? Pinning doesn't work. Work set, it just basically hides stuff. It doesn't do much. Okay? Work set, what it does is that if you put them in here, let's say I'm going to put this under referencing grid.
Could you not then own the work set and not let other people edit?
Nah, I don't want to do that. Okay, just not a good practice. It's just that sometimes it can lead to corruption. I don't want to do that. So now, if I put it into your work set, you notice that this one is, you cannot highlight this. Okay, you can highlight the other one, but you cannot highlight this one. Okay, so what it does is that it allows you to lock it down. Okay, I'm going to put it more. Now, to call it back, let's say if you want to go back, you can always click on this guy, this little guy here. It's called the exclude option. This is just temporarily. Okay, so if you select that object, if you hit escape, what it does is that it goes back to the original, so you're not able to hide that stuff. Okay, but if you want to work on it, then you say, okay, I want to go to the reference, and everything will be grayed out except for the grid lines. Okay, so that's a good way if you want to lock things down, certain things. I will not lock anything except grids and reference plane. Do not lock a property line. Yeah, trust me, people will scream at you. You can, if someone actually messed up too many times, then you want to lock it down, yes, you can lock it down. Okay, I'll leave that up to you guys. But most of the time I just say, just lock it down using the grid system. Okay? Just to prevent people. I mean, that's like little things like that will help a long way. So if you have a new person that doesn't know the project, wants to destroy a project, yeah. So don't tell them this trick, all right?
Question.
Sure.
Once you locked it, can you still use that as a reference? Say if you want to draw a wall, that's reference.
Yes. Oh yeah, you can. So it's just a way to kind of prevent people from touching it, right? But you could still draw stuff on it. You could still reference things on it. So it's not a problem. It's just a way to kind of prevent people from moving stuff. Okay? Because you could still dimension it as well. Okay? You can still dimension. Okay? You can still dimension stuff, which is not a problem. Okay?
Simon,
Yes?
if it's in a design option, it can also be in a work set, correct?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so we could, because when we reference other Revit models,
Yes.
we want the consultant's grids to be off.
That's
so
right.
we would need to do both.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You can still do it.
So, isn't it possible to have a work set setting that doesn't allow it to be edited?
No. That's the unfortunate thing. Okay? Yeah, you cannot say, lock things down. No, you cannot. unfortunately. All right. So if you have a link model, this is a perfect example. Like you could just take a link model and just say put it into that workset lockdown, right? So that nobody should be touching it. Because there's a chance that people will touch it and then will move it. It does happen. So this is preventing people from accidentally moving stuff. Okay, just as an option for you guys, right? So if you want to lock certain things down, prevent people from moving, this is the way to go.
One question, under design options,
Sure.
Would you be able to make the grids primary as well as other information?
It will show up. It will show up both, right? So design option is kind of like primarily, it's just, it's just a way to view it, right? But even if you put it as a main model, it still show up that as your main, right? It doesn't do anything. It just show up. It doesn't have anything grayed out or anything. Okay? So it's just a way to kind of lock things down, so preventing it. But, if your main model, it still show up.
If you have two design options.
Oh, if you have two design options, it still stay the same, right? So how design option is, I don't want to get too deep into this because I don't want people to use design option, okay? The reason why you do not want to use design option is because when you draw anything inside design option, you cannot transfer those design into the other model, okay? That's the reason why we don't use design option as much. You only use it for just locking stuff down, preventing people from changing stuff. But I would not use it for anything else except that. You can welcome to, like, if you guys want to talk about a design option that you use in your project that works successfully, I'd like to hear about it. But most of the time, when I did a lot of the projects where people use design option, we just find nothing but trouble. Okay, because what happened is that when someone actually did a design and they say they want to merge this design with the other one, it basically completely destroyed some of the element that was existing in the design option, and they don't show up at the end. So it was just iffy. All right, I haven't seen anything that's successfully working.
Because we used them for Burrard Station.
Okay.
We were doing genuine options, and they were all sort of valid at the same time. Then there was a master model.
Yes.
But then I think Stephanie just sort of took the things from the option that was ended up and put them into the main model.
Right.
So it sort of negated the design options in the end. But you're right, it was tricky all the way along to make sure that the right components were in the correct.
That's correct.
Option.
Yeah, it could get very, very messy. So, yeah. So I'll leave it up to you. If you guys find a perfect solution, I'm all for it because I don't mind using anything except Revit as long as there is a perfect validity. Sometimes it's just that we get user that does something that really, really messed up the project. That's where I'm gonna say no, don't use it until I find a perfect reason.
We used it in the churches for furniture. So the sanctuaries have a movable wall. So that wall wasn't a design option, but chairs orienting one way or the next way, different numbers of chairs, that's what it's used for.
I see.
So
Okay.
it's not modeling options, it was more just layout options for furniture.
Sure.
Which is independent of the building then.
Sure.
But you'd still have to make sure that the wrong, both all of them would show up at the same time.
Yeah,
Right. Like it's
so
still,
there's double number of chairs,
Yeah,
because you're gonna need double number anyways from rotating.
it's still tricky.
Yeah.
Even in that, like there's no architecture in that, but it's still
Yeah.
tricky. So.
Yeah. Just be aware. Okay. All right. Moving on. The last part. I guess we're almost ending. Okay. So I'm gonna show you guys how to scale any family, model family. Okay. I guess from Revit perspective, Revit you cannot scale unless you put it in as some sort of an object in there just to make sure that you have a parameter to set for that. So if you want to create a scale object, let's say I'm going to open up an object. Oops, where's my BIM? Sorry. All right, let's go into training. Okay, so I have a sample. All right, this is a Ferrari. Okay, yeah. I post this up on Slack, so if you guys are not on Slack, please join because I always post up some really ridiculous amount. Okay, so let's say this is a Ferrari. You want to scale Ferrari, okay?
Friday night.
Who knows? So if you want to scale Ferrari, let's say for example you want doing a train model, right? Rather than like if you're doing like a Lego set kind of a thing, it's architecture, right? So if you want to build like rather than building like a big building, that's scale to scale, you want to like scale it down to 50%. So let's say I'm going to do this and scale it down 50%. How do you do that? So the first thing you want to do is that you want to create a family. The first family you want to choose is the planting family. Okay, planting has the ability to scale, if you don't know. All right, so choose the planting. Okay, so the first thing you want to do in the planting family is that you want to set your this guy right here, the height. All right, by default, if you click on this, you see that you cannot turn it to instance parameter. Okay, that's the thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this at 1. That 1 means represents scale. Okay. Now, if you want to override that and make it as an instance parameter, the first thing you do is that you want to basically draw a detail line and say, or actually dimensions, and say this is a height of 1, and this is where there's a checkbox that you can say set it to instance parameter. Now that particular thing, it's becoming an instance parameter. So next I'm going to just delete this, you don't need it. And then take your Ferrari and just put it inside this family. So let's say you have a Ferrari it's a family. Put it inside this, I think it's family 2. I could be wrong, but bear with me. Okay, so just put it here, that's fine. Okay, so now you have that family 1. Now, what you have to do is that you have to create open up another family. Okay, again, you have to use another planting family. So it's basically a planting family embedded within a planting family. Then your scaling will work. All right, so next I'm just going to go planting family. So here what we're going to do is that number 2 go into number 3. But if you want a Ferrari to close the door, I'm just going to close the door. Okay, just make it look right. But if you want to make it open, that's fine. I don't care, right? So I'm just going to open it here and just drag it in here. Okay, just put it here. Now here I'm just going to say height. I'm just going to put it 1. Now, you want to create that as an instance parameter. Again, I'm just going to use this. Okay. And then use this and just say change that to height 1. Okay. Next thing you want to do is just click on this instance parameter. Okay, now I'm going to delete this. Oh, actually, that's the one I want to delete. Okay. Now you have a planting family. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to load it to casino. Okay. All right. So now what you could do is that you could just put it there. It's going to be same stuff. Let's see. Site. I'm just going to turn off the site. Do you see a planting family? I'm just going to say all. And just go planting. Where's my planting? And then I think I have to turn on the generic model. Or it could be a site. But for the site, I'm just going to turn off the property lines just in case. Do you see it? Oh, probably it's not in there. Yeah, it got destroyed. But anyways, I'm going to load it into my project 1 so that you guys can see it. Very small. There we go. Tiny worm. Okay, now what you could do is you could say, okay, I want a 600 or 6,000. Come on. Why is it not working? Okay, I destroyed my own work. All right, let's backtrack.
So you said you want to insert one family inside a
Yes.
planting family, but you didn't do that.
I did.
No.
Okay, let me double check. Okay, let's go back again. So, okay, first thing you do is that you create a family. Okay, I should leave that as a default, the 600. Yeah, sometimes when I do too cute, it
Hey
does.
Simon,
Yes.
Seattle has to sign off, but thanks for the tips today. We really appreciate it.
Okay, no problem.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Bye guys. Thanks.
All right, we're just gonna do it from Vancouver side, okay, so you can actually see it. So the first thing you want to do is that this instance parameter, I'll just say leave that alone now. I'm not going to touch it and make it 1 because 1 just doesn't seems to wanna work. Oops. This one, just say I want a height, and then just make an instance parameter, and then just get rid of this. Okay, let's load the Ferrari into here. Okay, it's family 4. Okay, so right now I'm not touching anything, so I'm just going to say 90 degree. Okay, it's a planting family. And now the next thing you want to do is that you create another one. I did test this out earlier today without touching this, so hopefully it works. And then now the family 4, I'm just going to load it to the family 5. Okay. Oh, the one thing I forgot to do, or forgot to tell people, is that this one, you see that when I select this, there is a height. Aha, that's one thing I forgot to do. That's a missing step. Okay, first you go height and height. Okay, and then now what you can do is that I'm going to make reference plane again, and make that instance parameter. Okay, so click on that, click on height, instance parameter. Okay, you can just delete it so you don't really need it. And now let's load it in. Let's check it. Okay, let's say project 1.
So you didn't have to snap any part of the model to
No.
the reference plane?
No, I don't care. Okay, so there we go. Looks pretty big, right? So now what I could do is that 600, and then I could say 2,000. Oh yeah. So you could say that one I want to be 1,000.
Is generic model scalable?
No,
Only planting?
only planting, right?
So then does it categorize it incorrectly? Does it think that's a plant now?
That's correct. But the thing is that you can embed it objects, right? You could be like, if you make it shared is a bit wonky, but you can make it as a shared parameter. What I mean by shared is that this object, if I go edit the family type, right? So if you click on this, Ferrari, you notice that there's always one called shared, right? If you make that shared, it means that that family is, when you load it into the main project, that thing is still keeps it as a family, a proper its own family.
I mean, I guess you probably never schedule it planting anyway, so it's not
No,
a big
no. But this is kind of like a quick trick if you want to do like, let's say a boulder, right? Like a landscape boulder that has like different sizing and stuff like that. So that's how you do it. And then the other way you could do it is the, where is it? Children, there's a lot of stuff with children stuff, right? So let's say if you want to do like a really, like a playground, but the thing is that the playground sometimes could be small, it could be big, but if you want to make it like super big and stuff like that, this is the way to go. And the other one is art exhibition. So if you're doing like fine art, right? Fine art could be as big or as small. Perfect way to do it, right? So you just plunk it in there, say I want to scale this 2 times, and you have a 2 times scale object, right? All right. So any questions so far? Yeah, I learned this. This was like 2012, and then when I went to, I think it was AU. No, is it Autodesk University? There's a guy named Marcelo showed there's 5 ways of doing scaling inside Revit. So this is just one of the way. This is the simplest. The other one requires you to look at, adaptive component, which is like way more trickier than people need to do. But this one is the easiest because you can just dump whatever inside the planting and then you just say scale, and there we go. All right.
So was Seattle on the phone right at noon today?
They're about 5 minutes later. Yeah.
Because we seem to be having the lunchroom rushes where everyone goes right at noon to heat their food up, and then we come in
Right. That's
15
fine.
minutes late. So
Sure.
if we're on the phone with Seattle, we should be cognizant of time for them as well.
Right.
Because they're then dropping off early because they've been waiting for 15 minutes.
Sure. All right, that's it for today. So
What time did we actually start?
Thank you.
Started, I think, between 5 and 10 after.
Yeah.